Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janaballabha Girid Badadari. Gopi Janaballabha Girid Badadari. Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tira Banachari. Yamuna Tira Banachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Gopi Janaballabha Girid Badadari. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tira Banachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Om Vishwavam Sapadarajakacharya Astatara Satashi Simade Si Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Om Vishwavam Sapadarajakacharya Stoter Satashi Simad Bhakti Siddhanta Sarasita Prabhupada Ki Gaura Premanandi Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, Chapter 12. Creation of the Kumaras and Others. Text 5. Tan babashe swabhuputran Prajashri Jataputrakaha Tannaich Chan Moksha Dharmano Vasudeva Parayanaha Tan babashe swabhuputran Prajashri Jataputrakaha Tannaichan Moksha Dharmano Vasudeva Parayanaha Tam babashe swabhuputran Prajashri Jataputrakaha Tannaichan Moksha Dharmano Vasudeva Parayana. Vaishnavis. Tan unto the Kumaras, as above mentioned. Babase addressed Swabhu Brahma Putran unto the sons, Praja generations, Sri Jata to create, Putraka, O my sons, Tat that, Na not, Aichchan desired, Moksha Dharmana pledged to the principles of liberation. Vasudeva, the personality of Godhead. Parayana, who are so devoted. Translation. Brahma spoke to his sons after generating them. My dear sons, he said, now generate progeny. But due to their being attached to Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they aimed at liberation, and therefore they expressed their unwillingness. Purport. The four sons of Brahma, the Kumaras, declined to become family men, even on the request of their great father, Brahma. Those who are serious about gaining release from material bondage should not be entangled in the false relationship of family bondage. People may ask how the Kumaras could refuse the orders of Brahma, who was their father and, above all, the creator of the universe. The reply is that one who is Vasudeva Parayana, or seriously engaged in the devotional service of the personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, need not care for any other obligation. It is enjoined in the Bhagavatam, Devarshi Bhutaptarninam Patrinam Nakinkaro Nayam Vranicharajam Sarvatmanaya Saranam Saranyam Gato Mukundam Parihritya Kartam. Anyone who has completely given up all worldly relationships and has taken absolute shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, who gives us salvation, and who alone is fit to be taken shelter of, is no longer a debtor or servant of anyone, including the demigods, forefathers, sages, other living entities, relatives, and members of human society. Thus there was nothing wrong in the acts of the Kumaras when they refused their great father's request that they become family men. Translation again. Brahma spoke to his sons after generating them. My dear sons, he said, now generate progeny. But due to their being attached to Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they aimed at liberation, and therefore they expressed their unwillingness. Om Agana Chimadandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militang Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Refusing the order of the Father. This is Vedic civilization at its peak that you're hearing about. Brahma wants to do something about the universe so that people can make gradual progress in a real spiritual culture. So you've already heard that first he created the conditions of ignorance. Those 5 things, beginning with tamas, ignorance, manifesting as forgetting our original constitutional position. That's the first thing. Because this universe is a place for forgetting Krishna, Yet Krishna arranges the whole universal system so that there are opportunities for those who want to remember him. So first is tamas. You forget that you are the eternal servant of Krishna. And then comes moha. You identify with your body as yourself. And then mahamoha. You become absorbed in all the things and pursuits in relation to your body. Body also means mind. And then anger. You become frustrated by not being satisfied with sense gratification, which must be the case, and therefore first frustration and then anger. So much of the problems of the world are the outgrowth of frustration leading to anger. People are not satisfied. They'll never be satisfied in sense gratification. We'll never be satisfied with that. And therefore, subconsciously or consciously, your frustration turns to wrath. Someone's got to suffer. Some person, some people, some group, the other side of the world. And then people become attracted to political leaders who say, yes, your rage against the others is correct. Don't feel guilty about it. Feel reassured. This is the right thing. That you blame others for your problems and hate them. We'll fully support that. So that is how the anger degenerates into violence. And that violence, you'll hear in coming verses, is based on the Rudra principle. Rudra also came from Brahma, just like the Kumaras, but he got kind of off track and started shaking up whatever creation Brahma had done, and Brahma had to tell him, just wait, your time is at the end of the cosmos, not the beginning. There'll be a time for your unparalleled wrath, but not now. This is the beginning of the creation, the beginning of the day of Brahma. So after anger comes complete bewilderment. Anger is Tamisra, number 4, and then number 5, Undhatamisra. Super bewilderment. No idea what is the goal of life. So Brahma had to create those conditions because he's acting on behalf of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and conditioned souls want that. Sometimes it's said, why did Krishna allow us to want that? Why didn't Krishna intervene? In many purports, Srila Prabhupada explains that when you first want to turn your back on Krishna, Krishna tries to convince you, don't do that, don't do that. But like the rebellious child of a parent, you want to do your thing. And so Krishna creates a facility, a playground where you think everything is going to be happy and fulfilling, but instead it's a horrible place. But because we're so intent, we're so focused on trying to enjoy, that we see something that's not there. We see happiness in the material world. It's an invention of our mind. But how are we ever going to understand that or realize that? To do so takes discipline, knowledge, and attachment to hearing and chanting about Krishna, engaging your senses in the service of Krishna. Otherwise, the moha, the illusion, the mahamoha, the tamisra, the undhatamisra, it's all too much. We're completely overpowered. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Daivi Esha Gunamai Mamamaya. This material energy of mine is practically impossible for you to overcome unless you do things my way. And that's what the bhakti lifestyle is all about, doing things Krishna's way. So Brahma, feeling bad about having to do the necessary to create an illusory playground for rebellious souls, he now manifests the 4 Kumaras. Each Kumara stands for one of the 4 principles of reformative understanding. First, there's Sankhya, looking at the material creation and analyzing, what is the root of this? What's the ultimate origin of all these material factors and ingredients? Of course, in today's so-called civilization, anyone who spends their time doing that is considered, you're unproductive. Only an unproductive person has time to worry about what's the meaning of life, what's the origin of everything. Come on, get a life. Make some money, have some kids, get a hobby. But worry about what's the meaning of life, what's the ultimate source, get real. You obviously are unemployed. You're obviously on the benefit or something. That's the way it is these days. Everyone proceeds in their merry way with no understanding of any ultimate consequences. So first Brahma creates Sankhya, the knowledge of analyzing the universe and getting to the root. And then yoga, the mystic process for liberation. And then vairagya, detachment from agitating activity, agitating circumstances. And finally, tapas, austerity, voluntarily. We're taking on some inconveniences for the sake of a higher purpose. So each of the 4 Kumaras stands for one of those 4 items. So then, having created such illustrious sons, Brahma wanted them to help in populating the universe, because that's Brahma's mission, to manifest Prajapatis who will expand the population in various different forms, bodily forms. So now we're hearing that he expresses his wish to the 4 Kumaras. That's the nature of real family life. The father expresses his wishes. My dear sons, please do this, take over the business, or do something on my behalf. Similarly, the spiritual father, the spiritual master, makes his wishes known to his children. So it seemed a done deal. My dear boys, now generate progeny. I've generated you. No. This is a mega event in Vedic history, the 4 Kumaras' refusal. Because normally, you don't in a civilized society, the order of the father is considered sacrosanct. It's very sacred. And he's ordering them to create children. What's wrong with that? But they said no. They didn't want to become entangled. So in the context of the so-called culture that we have today, we don't see a problem looking at it through the Western cultural lens. It's not my father's business whether I want to procreate or not. That's my affair. Elsewhere in Bhagavatam, Prabhupada writes that it's natural for the sons to marry on the order of the father, just as it is natural for the father to name the sons or to pass on the inheritance pass on his wealth, his property, passed it on to the sons. That's natural. So name giving is natural. Property giving is natural. Similarly, marrying on the request of the father is natural. How does that sound? I was speaking to some young men from Adelaide, from India. They were in their, maybe just past their mid-20s, and they were all doing their master's degree in IT, master's degree in finance, and of course their hope was to get a job that will give them PR and they'll settle in Australia. And so I said, all right, you're doing your master's degree and you're preparing for the PR ordeal, permanent residency ordeal. And so, then what? He said, well, our parents are looking for a wife for us. All of them said that. Our parents are looking for a wife for us. Now, when I explained that to an audience born in the West, it practically sounds barbaric. What is this? What do the parents have to do with whom I partner with? You don't even say marriage. You say, whom I partner with for whatever amount of time. That's my business. Can any of you imagine marrying on the selection of your father? I can't even look at your faces and say it straight. So, Mike, this is just terrorism. What is this, the Taliban or something? But in Vedic culture, this is considered normal. So we can see that we're far from a real human society. That's my point. I was telling the story in Melbourne a few days ago about how, this is many years ago, one couple came to Bhakti, became full practicing devotees, and they had been together since she was 16 and he was 20. So they had been together for 6 years. When she was 16, the parents did the usual enlightened parenting, which is, oh, you have a boyfriend? You're 16? Let him live at home with you. That's considered very advanced. Especially, Alana Prabhu would know, it's considered North Shore parenting. North Shore of Auckland. Liberal, understanding, just be happy in your own way, how you do it. Got a boyfriend, you're 16? Bring him into your room, let him live with you. Why should you hide anything? Anyway, 6 years later, they became devotees. She was 21 and he was 25 or so. And I said, well, actually, I think Alanath Prabhu remembers the couple. I asked him, since you want to be initiated, you should get married. Marriage? What's that? But anyway, they were surrendered souls. And so she went to her mother, who was an educated lady, and both father and mother educators. Well-off, property investments, good careers. In other words, not what you would consider low-life persons. So she went to her mother, and by that time, she had 2 kids, a 2-year-old and a brand new baby. So she said, Mother, we're going to get, we're Krishna Bhaktas now, and we're going to get married because that's the thing to do. That's what they tell us. Not that we understand it, but we're just going along with the Krishna Bhakti precepts, and we're supposed to be married. What did the mother say? Don't rush into anything now. Just take your time. She said, Mother, we already have 2 kids. That's all right. That is not a problem. Think about it. Be gradual. Take it slow. So this is the kind of society we live in. Another true story. there was a couple. The man was from Calcutta, but living in New Zealand. And his bride-to-be was from the UK, and they were both in New Zealand. So they're devotees. They had no problem understanding the need for marriage. So they went first to get a civil marriage. And you had to go to the marriage, birth, and death certificate office in Auckland to register for a legal marriage. And so they did that. They walked into the office. There was a receptionist. And then behind the receptionist were about 30 desks of secretaries on their computers doing birth, death certificates, so on. So the couple said to the receptionist, we're here to register for a legal marriage. And the receptionist burst out laughing. And the devotees were astonished. What's the joke? And then the receptionist turns to the 30 secretaries behind her and says, can you believe it? Someone came here for a marriage? And the whole room bursts out laughing. It's a true story. So the devotees were stunned, like, are we at the right place? And the receptionist said, yes, this is the marriage, birth, and death certificate office, but no one comes here to get married. So how are such persons going to understand this Vedic system of marrying someone that your parents select? Who here could stomach such a thing? Everyone's looking at me with astonished looks, especially the ladies, like, it's my business who I'm temporarily going to partner with. That's my affair. But for the four Kumaras who are at the pinnacle of Vedic culture, they're the sons of Brahma, it was understandable completely that Brahma would ask them to procreate. But they said no. They opted out for higher reasons. They weren't saying, not that one you've picked out, pick another. They said, we don't want a bar of this. So Brahma was very upset because, as you'll hear in coming verses, Brahma is in charge of Rajoguna, the mode of passion. And that's what it takes to manifest the creation. So hearing his four sons' refusal, he became very angry. So in the purport today, you hear the famous verse, Devarshi Bhutaptarninam Patrinam. Someone who fully takes to devotional service has no obligations. You see, a real human culture consists of commitment and obligations. Understand that, and then you look at today's so-called culture, you see no commitment, no duty, no obligations. That means you don't have a human society. Just do whatever your senses feel right now at this moment. If at the next moment your senses feel differently, then you're free to disavow whatever vows you made before. This is not human civilization. You took some initiation vows. Well, when you said those initiation vows, you really meant it. But that was 2 years ago. When you were younger, often I hear that. I said those vows when I was young. But now it's different. I've moved on. I still believe in Krishna. So this is not human culture. When Srila Prabhupada started the Hare Krishna movement and the first initiations, he was at first shocked that devotees would drop their initiation vows. And when he started arranging marriages, also at the very beginning, and having his disciples marry, he was shocked when they would break up. Externally, it took him a while to realize that this is the Wild West. But he was proceeding like this is a Vedic sacrifice, yajna, marriage is sacred, initiation vows sacred, Everyone can understand that. So actually when the first disciples left, disappeared, Prabhupada cried. What is this? But he persevered. So the four Kumaras are taking their out, that we're not being irresponsible just for some whimsical reason. We're refusing the order of our Father in a way that seems irresponsible, but actually we have the highest responsibility. It's not that we just want to avoid material inconveniences of married life. No, we want everything to be maximal for our focus on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's a technical point that the four Kumaras at this point, they're not manifesting their full-on bhakti. Their main thing is the Sankhya, Yoga, Vairagya, Tapas, with bhakti in the background. But as their lives proceed, the bhakti comes to the forefront. There's another example in Srimad Bhagavatam in the 5th canto, where Priyavrata, that famous example, was the son who's supposed to be in charge of the whole world. But even though his father is Swayambhuva Manu, Priyavrata always avoided any royal governmental responsibilities, and from the very beginning of his life, from childhood, he was absorbed in spiritual practices, cultivating fully his spiritual life under the instruction of Narada Muni. So Swayambhuva Manu had to make someone else in charge because Priyavrata was unavailable. But what happened was the other family line from the sons that Swayambhuva Manu chose, because Priyavrata was unavailable, they somehow or other, their line discontinued. And so Swayambhuva Manu had to turn to Priyavrata. It's on you. You avoided this at first. I tried to devise a workaround with other sons, but now that line from the other sons, for some reason, is not continuing. Now is the time. You have no other choice. It's you. You've got to come out of the forest and into the palace. Especially, there was a pressing situation because Swayambhuva Manu wanted to retire. So normally, Priyavrata, if he was an ordinary person, hearing the call, come to the palace, enjoy power and opulence. Sure, count me in. Let's go. Normally that would be the case. And normally the case would be that Swayambhuva Manu wants to just cling to his post until his last breath. But this is Vedic civilization. This is real human civilization. Priyavrata is not at all eager to leave the forest and go to the palace. And Swayambhuva Manu is not at all eager to continue his governing beyond a certain age. He wants to retire. So this is real civilization. We're talking about the order of the Father. We're talking about retirement at a certain age. We're talking about non-attachment for power and opulence. So we have a cosmic crisis because of Priyavrata's refusal. And who is advising Priyavrata? Narada Muni. Narada Muni is telling him, you don't want to get entangled. You don't want palace life. You don't want home life. You don't want to marry. You don't want to have children. So Swayambhuva Manu is in a tough situation. He's up against Priyavrata's stubbornness and Narada Muni's advice. Don't do it. Don't do it. So what can Swayambhuva Manu do but call upon Lord Brahma? That's how big a crisis it was. Swayambhuva Manu had to turn to his father, Brahma. And Brahma descended. So there is Narada Muni and Priyavrata on top of a mountain, because Priyavrata is there practicing austerities and Narada Muni is counseling him. And they look up and they see the swan of Lord Brahma coming down. And Brahma doesn't come alone. Just Brahma coming is such a significant happening. But Brahma brings with him a whole retinue of sadhus. He brings Treya Rishi, he brings Marichi, he brings Vasishta. Even somehow the Lord Shiva shows up. So this is like more than a global event. This is a cosmic event, all to break Priyavrata's determination not to marry. So Brahma descends from the swan and looks at Priyavrata, smiling, and Brahma not only is smiling, but he's showing compassion, indicating, you are determined not to marry, and I am determined that you will marry. So, what is Priyavrata to do? Narada Muni has told him, be detached. Don't get involved in material entanglements. Brahma is telling him, we need you to take up this post of ruling the world. Never mind that it involves politics and life in the palace. We need you to do this. So Priyavrata is trapped. How does he handle it? Narada Muni is saying, be detached. Brahma is saying, get into it. So Brahma tells him, use your intelligence, which means combine both instructions. Take up the palace life, but be detached. Marry, have children, govern, but don't be entangled. Have a complete attitude of detachment. Brahma tells him, no one can avoid the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In other words, I'm telling you what the Supreme Personality of Godhead wants. You've got Narada Muni here telling you one way. It seems I'm telling you the other way. Combine the both. Use your intelligence. Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe Yuktam Vairagyam Uchate, as Rupa Goswami explains. Real renunciation means to use everything in Krishna's service. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur says this is actually, we take it commonplace. In Vaishnava circles, to hear that you should use everything in Krishna's service, you shouldn't falsely renounce anything. We take it for granted, but Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur says this is a very mystical principle of Bhakti Yoga. It's not commonplace. It's not something ordinary. So that's how Priyavrata was influenced to resolve the situation. He took up the order of Brahma with the spirit that Narada Muni was imparting to him. Be detached, be renounced. And Brahma is saying, marry, govern, palace life. So Priyavrata combined them both as per the instructions of Brahma. And Narada Muni was satisfied. First of all, Narada Muni knew that Brahma had pulled rank on him. This is real human civilization. You defer to your seniors. So Narada Muni's father is Lord Brahma. So Narada Muni was not angry. Dad's come here and rained on my parade. As in Kali Yuga, we would be angry like that. Stay out of my life, Dad. No, Narada Muni graciously accepted And Swayambhuva Manu was very happy. Why? Because now there would be an heir to the throne, and Swayambhuva Manu could retire. He was eager. He had done his dash, as we say. And he was following the Vedic system. At the last part of your life, you retire as a vanaprastha. So this is how a real human civilization operates. But we don't have such a civilization today. In fact, we are living in a situation in which the social fabric is totally disintegrating. No duty, no obligation, no commitments. Just follow your senses and whatever your mind comes up with at the moment. Society can't go on like this. So now we can understand even more why Srila Prabhupada says that Srimad Bhagavatam is for re-spiritualizing the entire human society. There's nothing else to do. There's no other course of action than to reformat the whole human society because it's unfavorable for spiritual lifestyles. So this is why the Vaishnavacharyas take on the whole world, especially Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada. Sometimes they say things which seem on such a grand scale. We wonder, how could it ever happen? But that is the desire of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that the whole world has a chance to chant Hare Krishna. So we have such a big mission. But first we have to bring the mission to ourselves in terms of, are we serious devotees? Do we want to be serious devotees? And then we can start thinking about transforming the world. But there's no doubt that Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan mission is transformative. So you might say now, what's the point, Maharaj, in hearing about all these antiquated cultural behaviors? Marrying on the order of your father, retiring at the last stage of your life, taking vanaprastha. We like the theory. We like the mythology. I mean, not mythology. We like the theory, but to actually try to apply this? What's the point? We can't apply it, but why should we even hear about it? We're so far from that standard. But just consider, it's enlivening to know what the real standard is, even though we're far from it. It gives you some way, it gives you a measuring stick so that you won't take what's going on today in the guise of human civilization. You won't take that as the standard. You won't believe that human beings have really made progress. You won't swallow that. Look at our gadgets. Look at our technology. Look at our AI. How great human beings are. As I often point out, they're so great, they're destroying their own habitat. They're threatening each other with more and more nuclear weapons. Everyone's increasing their nuclear arsenal. They're having international meetings about climate disruption. Meanwhile, nothing changes enough to avoid whatever they're predicting, whatever calamity they're predicting. They can't control their mind and senses. So family life has long disappeared, especially in the first world. It's still there in the second and third world, but in the first world, it's going, gone. Who can control their senses so that there will be real environmental solutions? Whether the problem is nature-caused or human-caused, the point is human beings can't control their senses enough to come up with a solution. nuclear weapons, they're increasing, not decreasing. Political instability, economic uncertainty. So the latest term is not crisis, it's polycrisis. That means all these different crises are intersecting at the same time. So this is the situation, and then we read about Vedic culture, Vedic civilization, and we wonder, how does that apply? What's the point even in hearing about it? None of you here would agree that your parents pick your partner. None of you. You would, as we said, you would consider that to be terroristic and barbaric. But by hearing these cultural principles from Srimad Bhagavatam, we actually start to understand how far away from the human standard is our situation today. What to do? Become more dependent on chanting Hare Krishna. Without that, there'll be no question of global transformation. First, the Hare Krishnas have to become Hare Krishnas. The more we become Hare Krishnas by dedication to chanting Hare Krishna, the more effect we can have on the world, and the more we'll be able to understand why our acharyas like Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada had such a vision. Before Prabhupada took Krishna Bhakti all over the world, most sadhus, Gaudiya Vaishnavas in India thought that when the Shastra says, Priti Priti Achi Yata Nagarati Gram Sarvacha Pachar Hoibe Moranam, and Lord Chaitanya says, in every town and village my name will be heard. Gaudiya Vaishnavas, before Prabhupada did what he did, they thought this is poetry. This is an outpouring of devotional sentiment. But take bhakti all over the world, especially to the Wild West. But we endorse the spirit of it, but it'll never happen. So Srila Prabhupada said that his disease is that he never could think small, even as a child. And he was convinced, is convinced, that within the Hare Krishna global mission, there is the potency to transform the world. So he would tell his followers that either you take that responsibility and come up to the mark, or someone else will get the credit. He wrote in one letter, I know Lord Chaitanya will send me the right persons to lead this global transformation. If not you, somebody else. So first we have to become Hare Krishnas. And then what we're reading in Bhagavatam starts to make more sense. The refusal of the four Kumaras, the refusal of Priyavrata, and then he bends, all right. It's good to know what is our cultural inheritance. What's the background? Vedic culture provides the ideal setting for spiritual culture, but it's not in of itself spiritual culture, but it provides the ideal format, the ideal circumstances. But without chanting Hare Krishna, there's no point to anything. Vedaishta sarvair aham Veja. Krishna says, by all the Vedas I'm to be known. I'm the conclusion of the Vedas. So Brahma, you're going to hear in the coming verses, is ticked off. I'm not only your father, I am Brahma. the creator of the universe. So we'll hear what comes next. Rudra. All right. Any questions? Anyone here who will marry on the order of their parents?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you so much for the beautiful class. Very enlivening, very practical. Thank you so much. The question, like when you said that bhakti background and forefront, so karma yoga is bhakti background and the bhakti yoga is bhakti forefront. Is that right?
Karma yoga means bhakti is secondary. I want to do what I want to do, but I'll offer it to Krishna. Pure bhakti means whatever Krishna wants, however Krishna wants it. But karma yoga, there's nothing to sneeze at. Oh, it's just karma yoga. We'd like more devotees to do some karma yoga. You like making money? Please make money for Krishna.
And
whatever you like to do, please do it for Krishna. That's karma yoga.
And bhakti yoga is in the forefront?
Krishna, whatever you desire, however you desire it. But that's a high platform. Still, it's the real standard.
And now we are starting Hare Krishna schools for the kids, for the devotee kids and all. And if we have difficulty hiring the teachers, devotee teachers, what is your solution? Very hard to find.
That's a management question. So this is Bhagavatam class.
Thank you so much.
Anyone else? Yes.
Just wondering how the aspect of Priyavrata, Swami Manu leaving, retiring, and that, how does that apply to our ISKCON society?
It seems to be happening on an individual basis according to the realization of the senior person. Some say, we'll push on till our last breath. Others say, no, we'll retire and make way for someone younger. But then others say, where are the younger persons who want to take up such a yajna? Managemental responsibility is not a walk in the park these days. If you say turn right, someone criticizes. Why didn't you say turn left? If you say turn left, someone says, why didn't you say turn right? And then someone else will say, why didn't you just go straight ahead? And then you get interneted. And so the reality is, if you want to know the truth, it's not that devotees are standing in line to take up responsibility, as during Prabhupada's time. During Prabhupada's time, everyone wanted responsibility. Why? What do you think, Deva Gauri? More than that, you got a chance. If you were president, GBC, you got Prabhupada's personal association. I know as a younger devotee, I was vying for that. What can I do? Because I want Prabhupada's association. What leading role can I take up? Because then you had first access to the morning walks with Prabhupada. You could go up to his room, and so that was the incentive. The current of the river continued to flow until it gradually waned. So yes, there are different approaches. I won't comment on senior Vaishnavas' various responses. Some say we'll push on to the end, to the last breath. They quote Prabhupada. He said, I want to die on the battlefield. Others say, no, at a certain point, enough is enough. But when is it enough? That's an individual decision. Others say, make room for the younger generation of leaders. Where are they? So it's an individual decision as it's turning out so far. Yes.
Who are preaching who didn't even meet Srila Prabhupada.
Yes.
Like, maybe there's not enough of them, but I mean, there's classes being given by devotees who weren't even present when Srila Prabhupada was there.
So I don't understand.
Well, there does seem to be young people coming forward.
So please, you convince them. It's one thing to be a preacher. It's another thing to take up the burden of managemental responsibility. So if you can convince a few, please let us know. Preaching is one thing, but the kind of leader of responsibility that Prabhupada wanted in terms of organizing and managing his whole society, not many are volunteering for that. I remember I was in Mayapur, 1998, and I was blissfully chanting Hare Krishna, Mayapur Dham, walking here and there in the Dham, and then my godbrother Shivaram Maharaj comes up to me and says, you know, you look too happy. You should be a GBC. So someone has to do the job. Where are the persons standing in line? That is a problem. There are persons who want to preach, yes, but to follow the example of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur with he had 50 Gaudiya Maths, 50 centers in India. To follow the example of Srila Prabhupada, who when he left this world, there were 108 centers. Now there's probably 1,000. Where are such persons wanting to shoulder that responsibility? Anyone here? Just let me know. So you could understand Priyavrata's refusal. No, I'm on top of the Gandhamadana hill. I've got Narada Muni as my mentor, my spiritual guide. I'm absorbed in meditation on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. No, I'm not going into palace life. But he was the only qualified person. Swayambhu Manu had no one else to turn to. So it was a whole cosmic crisis. So Lord Brahma himself had to get involved for the sake of the whole universe. So we're not the only ones who were having a leadership crisis. All right, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.